And like the majority of Americans at that stage of my life, I was giving vacation back to the company, which tallies billions of dollars every year that Americans leave vacation untaken. And my husband was fully supportive. So I was the only one who was getting in her way here. And I needed to make different decisions.
Hi there, I'm Wendy Rimmelsbacher, and welcome to the podcast show Dim to Daring. Do you feel like there's something bigger waiting for you, but you're not sure how to make it happen? You're in the right place. I'm here to bring you inspiring stories, powerful insights, and practical strategies to help you reignite your spark, realign with your purpose, and take those bold steps towards the life you were meant to live. Let's dive in, because you're not finished yet. You're just getting started. Welcome back to Dim to Daring, the podcast that helps high-achieving women like you move out of autopilot and into alignment with a life that feels bold, fulfilling, and fully yours. If you're in any of these situations, like just starting your career, in midlife, contemplating retirement, or living in retirement and craving more meaning and fun, this show is for you. This episode is for driven women ready to break free and embrace greater joy, purpose, and energy. Let me ask you this. Have you ever looked at your packed schedule, your to-do list, even your achievements, and thought, why does this still feel like not enough? If you're someone who gets things done, shows up for everyone else, and keeps the whole machine running, but deep down you feel like you've been running on fumes or missing the fun, you're going to love today's guest. Today, I'm honored to be interviewing Ann Potts. She is a communication strategist, group coach, and the founder of The Fun Reset, where she helps high-performing women reimagine how they use their time and energy, not by doing more, but by reconnecting with what lights them up. After decades in corporate leadership, Ann now focuses on helping women shift out of their stress mode and into more empowered, energized living. She doesn't make fun frivolous, she makes it essential. And her approach to self-leadership, time ownership, and rewriting the rules of success is exactly the kind of clarity so many of us crave. We're talking about stress, identity, permission, and the sneaky beliefs that disconnect us from ourselves, even when everything looks successful on the outside. Ann, welcome to Dim to Daring. I'm so excited to chat with you today. I've been looking forward to this conversation because I know so many of the listeners are going to connect deeply with your message and your story. But before we dive into the conversation, is there anything you'd like to add or expand on from the intro I just shared?
Oh my goodness, Wendy, that was a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. And I'm delighted to be with you. I don't have much to add, so let's get into the discussion.
Okay, well, let's start right here. You spent decades leading strategic communications work for innovation-focused brands. What moment, or maybe series of moments, led you to shift your focus to supporting high-achieving women and helping them untangle from their stress and overwhelm?
There was one particular, and it was actually one statistic.
Wow.
A number come out of Harris. I know, right? It never works out that way, but it really did for me. Harris, the nationwide polling firm, data that said 1/3 of American women, which was 2023, were almost always feeling out. So there's a bunch of other responses that are possible that made me sit up and take notice. If 1/3 of American almost always feeling burned out, what's up with the rest of us? I didn't even have to look left and right to the vast number of women with whom I did to understand that this is very true. It may not be 5 out of 5 for everyone I know, but the majority are somewhere on the high end of that scale, where stress and burnout is just building for women who have been on an achievement trajectory who, as just the introduction, have lives that look great from the outside, but the dots aren't in a way that makes them feel fulfilled.
That is astounding. Oh my gosh. That is such a nugget to really confirm how you're feeling, how I was feeling, and how many of our listeners are
Right.
feeling. Just that we're not different than the others. We're
Right.
right in the middle of it.
And so when I saw that, I thought, this is a public health crisis. We're conditioned to just power through, especially women who have had achievement on their mind for, a few years. And I thought, this needs to be discussed, and we need ways of looking at it. And so I went through this process of, looking at myself and life and my own experiences with stress. And in the communications, PR, public relations, is often listed as among the most stressful, which honestly, I've always kind of thought, come on, there's first responders, there's folks who work in emergency departments, get over ourselves. But the fact of the matter is, well, I still think it's not nearly as stressful as some of those jobs. One of the aspects of communication, our work, is you're never off. You're constantly looking at the news and thinking about to help your clients make the most of whatever is happening in this 24/7 news cycle that we live in. There is some truth to that. And anyone who works in client service and carries a number, sales number or profit objective, all of those kinds of things that we can carry on our shoulders can really, and that was my experience, where I did have a lot of things that I was very responsible for while being, at teams and a mom and, running the home front. So there was a lot going on for me for years. And, after I kind of got out of the thick of all of that, I could look back and think, yeah, there were definitely moments where I experienced some of the dynamics where now I'm trying to illuminate those for other women and apply some research and other aspects of other dimensions so we can understand, why, as smart women, do we find ourselves in these positions, which is really my guiding question. Why do we land here, and how do we get out of it? And the why is what we'll spend some more time talking about here. And then the how do we get out of it? The answer there for me is having fun.
Oh, that's well said. And that really helps me zoom out too and see the patterns so many women are caught in. Thank you for sharing that perspective and expertise on this topic. And it also lends itself right into the whole social media and always having our phones and always getting alerts if we don't turn them off about everything that's going on. And it's no wonder that we're tapped out on news and negativity.
Yeah.
And things that trigger us, and also people in our family that are triggered by things that are hitting their phones too. So yeah, it's a bad deal.
Yes.
We need to learn to tune that out and have fun. I agree with you.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is funny. It's as if the broader society has now taken up the job of what has been, kind of part and parcel of public relations. We all do this all the time now. Well, it used to just be part of, this one sort of group's day to day. Now it's everybody's reality. And it's not helpful.
Not at all.
It's just not helpful.
Okay, so now I want to zoom in on a personal moment that you've shared with me earlier, because I think it will resonate with a lot of the listeners. Tell us about the moment you declared, quote unquote, "It's my summer too," and why that was such a pivotal turning point for you in reclaiming yourself and rewriting that narrative you were living in.
Yeah, thanks. Going back in time a bit to when my kids were in the late stages of elementary school, maybe starting middle school, so somewhere between fourth and sixth grade. I was standing in my kitchen, and I had gone to at 5:30. They were having breakfast and sort of bubbling and jammering on about, what the summer was going to be like for them. And we had put together this pretty intricate schedule of camps and time with grandparents and, our own vacation time, and, did what almost all families do in the summertime, trying to make sure that the kids were covered, not home alone, and had, something interesting going on for themselves. And they were excited, which is a wonderful thing. And I am to have had this experience with two healthy children. I was having my own moments as they were, sharing their happiness. And inside, I was looking at a summer of flights away from home. And I live by the shoreline in New England, where summer is magical. I knew I was going to be spending time in hotels far away and not taking advantage of the precious days here, because summer in New England matters a lot because it's winter before you know it. So we really do like to guard our days and enjoy them as best we can.
As you should.
Exactly, right? And I've lived here my whole life, so I'm sort of preconditioned to this way of thinking. And what happened as I was standing in that moment and thinking about that schedule that was ahead of me, I reflexively said aloud to my kids as the audience, supposedly, but I was actually the audience, "It's my summer too." And the two of them kind of looked at me and said, yeah. And it didn't even, register with them, because of course it's my summer too. When you're a kid, that's, everybody is supposed to have fun. And it was my own way of saying to myself, oh my goodness, this is my chance. This is the season that I live for. And if I don't do something about it, it's going to go away for me. And for me, for my needs, my wants, my ambitions around having fun, I was going to let all of that kind of fall by the wayside unless I took action. And that moment, so there was the Harris stat, there was that experience that I had where I gave myself, and, there was some force, from beyond perhaps helping me have this realization. I gave myself my own shot in the arm to think, I can't just be the conveyor belt of everyone else's needs, be it at home or at work. I need to be part of what happens here, and my own needs need to register. The piece of this that's important to call out is I had vacation time. I wasn't working in a terrible condition. I did have that opportunity. And like the majority of Americans at that stage of my life, I was giving vacation back to the company, which tallies billions of dollars every year that Americans leave vacation untaken. And my husband was fully supportive. So I was the only one who was getting in her way here. And I needed to make different decisions. So I have this unbelievable sort of set of experiences that have just unfolded magically, where I could tick off some of the things that I had really wanted to do, but years turned into next year and the following year, and I just never made it happen. And that year I did. So I spent some time on a golf course, and I spent some time sailing, and I spent some time on a paddleboard, and I covered so many of my heartfelt ambitions, my fun ambitions. And it didn't take a lot of money. It took some time. It took my own intention. But it was magical enough that I can say this many years on, I'm still drawing from having had those experiences and having
Oh
made
my
that
gosh,
decision.
you're giving me literally chills over here. Just the way you described the New England, the ocean, the beaches, and how magical that is. I mean, really, I had some chills going on. And then also, sadly, your story about, not taking vacations that you had access to and had a supporting husband is exactly the same for me too. And it leaves you feeling so negative and resentful and jaded when you're in that situation in your career where you feel like you can't take off because your responsibilities are so great. And I know that's for me, that's where I got stuck. Let's make this personal about me, but yeah. I can so relate. And I bet there's so many listeners that are thinking that same thing about it's my summer too, but how do I get there? How do I get access to it? Because the responsibilities feel so heavy.
Yeah, and I think, there's so many things that kind of converge around taking time. So there's like the big kahuna, the vacation, which is, the thing that we glorify and put in, its own sort of special position and have high ambitions for and great intentions around that may or may not sort out depending on whether the weather is good or who's along with you or what your accommodations are like. There's so many variables obviously that govern whether a vacation goes well. And then and so that's kind of like the ultimate. And then there's the like going out for a cup of coffee. So the way that we decide to spend our time, our free time, is not really a conversation that many of us are having. We know, and we, scroll Instagram or maybe look at Pinterest again around that ideal vacation setting. But we don't really think about the other pieces and the other opportunities that are available to us and what we can do. So I think, one of the things that once you get into that kind of responsibility zone at work and I can't take any time off, what I would invite people to start to think about is, can you knock out a Tuesday afternoon? Can you say that I'm going to take 3 hours and start there? Because it's either feast or famine, vacation being hopefully the feast. Otherwise, very few of us do anything for ourselves or give ourselves any sort of stretch of time to just explore and fulfill our own sense of wonder, creativity, adventure, all of those kind of ingredients that embody fun. We're not doing it. So it is I often refer to that kind of all or nothing kind of framework that so many of us, kind of, whether we're aware of it or not, that is part of the autopilot that you're talking about in my mind, Wendy, that we need to be more aware of. We can make different choices. We just have to be creative about it and be more thoughtful on our own behalf. Because if we don't, the very real health implications of stress and burnout are right there. So there's that. And then also just how you show up. You talked about how your own experience was. I can say for myself as well, I know I wasn't showing up as my bright, sparkling, talented self when I felt like I was bearing the burden of the world. That is not a place of either inner success or outward success. So, for women of ambition, I want to say, you're kind of not fooling anybody by just powering through with the stress that you're carrying, because it's not going to work out well, which is, as I'm saying it, I hate sounding like I'm trying to, shame women or say that, they're, doing something terribly wrong. But in this instance, I'm just really kind of begging us all to stand up for ourselves and to help ourselves in this way.
And you just nailed it. That was beautiful. And I'm just over here nodding my head at everything you're saying and thinking, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be involved in this conversation. But I'm so mesmerized by how it's so aligned with everything I lived through. I didn't give myself permission to do those things. And yet you just spelled it out so easily. It really involves blocking some time out and declaring Tuesday afternoon, when I go to lunch, I'm not coming back. I'm going to go paddleboarding. Right. I'm going to go read a book under a shady tree. Whatever it is. But it's that right. action of clearing your calendar and proclaiming that we're important enough and we deserve that time for our self-care, our wellness, our health. And once you take that one step, as you described, it gets easier. I mean, you can start doing it every week, whatever your next step looks like to you. But you're right. Absolutely right and spot on this. And I'm hoping that, so many listeners, that this is really sending a deep dive message into their soul about taking action this summer to do something for themselves that's healthy.
Yeah. And I think, part of the dynamic too, Wendy, is that when it's, I talked about how when I first, kind of started to put my own thinking together around that shocking number around burnout and the fact that so many women I know are either dissatisfied with their jobs or, facing stress from a variety of different parts of their lives. That that becomes the water we're swimming in. This is the world that we're familiar with. This is the world that we know. So we just think, okay, well, this is how it is.
Yeah.
And so that's obviously toxic. And we need to start to pay attention. So, I said that step one is to, start to look at your calendar. Can you block off time? Maybe the half step before that is tuning in and understanding what some of the things that you feel like are not your favorite, that meeting that is going to be horrendous to plan out the rest of the year when no one has a good plan, or, the task that you hate, let's say, I don't mind going to the grocery store, but I know a lot of people do that, when you're heading into that, what's happening in your body? Are your shoulders going up around your ears? Is your heart rate accelerating? Are you clenching your jaw? You might think of these reactions as being completely normal because this is kind of how you run. But what I'm asking is for folks to just start to connect because your body is telling you something. And when we can better understand, oh gosh, yeah, this is what it feels like when I have to do this thing, which is just perhaps the most basic kind of experiment to try as you're being more connected. It's not that you're not going to go to the meeting, and it's not that you're not going to go to the grocery store. I just want folks to understand if life is a seesaw, the seesaw's got to get balanced out a little bit more. And I'm not talking about work-life balance. I'm talking about putting more deposits back onto your side of that seesaw so that if you do notice that, gosh, I do spend, as many of us do, hours a day feeling stressed in my body, then you have to know your body and your soul and your entire being needs something to feed it back to a place of health and normalcy.
Yes.
So that having that level of understanding is not something that a lot of people, I think, practice, but it is really important as we begin this work to understand why and how, and then, what do we do about it?
Absolutely. I wanted to toss in another example too. Sometimes we eat junk food, and that's a sign of saying, what do I not want to do that's facing me and I'm procrastinating? Sometimes just
Yeah.
what we eat when we binge on something that we wouldn't normally, and then we feel shameful about what we just did. But sometimes that's the sign
Yeah.
that we need to recognize as something we're putting off doing.
Yeah. Oh gosh, procrastination and all that is that's a huge zone, right? I'm far from expert. I fall victim myself, as perhaps all of us do.
Same here. Yep.
But yeah, no, there's a lot for sure.
Yeah. Well, it took me years to understand all that too, and then to live by it as well. But once you start recognizing some of those signs and listening to your body, some of the things that you illustrated just now, you start making different decisions because you catch yourself. And that's the beautiful part of personal growth and learning
Right.
new things and being aware of things that you can make your decisions differently the next time.
That's right.
Yeah. Even when women start to reclaim their time or space for themselves, many still feel unfulfilled or disconnected underneath it all. What do you think is at the heart of that? What kinds of beliefs or internal narratives tend to keep high achieving women stuck in that cycle?
Yeah, I have come across a theory from social science that I didn't know existed, and I've spent quite a bit of time looking at these themes, but somehow this one evaded me until recently. And this one it's something that I think women should know about, and I checked to see whether it was if it went through extensive peer review, and apparently it has. So I'll go ahead and share it. And the theory is called tend and befriend. Have you heard about this one?
No, can you say it again? Is it
Tend,
tend, T-E-N-D?
T-E-N-D, tend, and befriend, make friends.
Okay.
So it is a stress response that researchers attribute to women, majority women. Um, and what happens is we have a behavioral and physiological response to stress that guides us to tend to the needs of others and build connection with others. So, we spend a lot of time saying that, we're all in fight or flight, that, we can't differentiate an email from a saber-toothed tiger, and that we're all at this very high vibration. These social scientists are saying tend and befriend is the thing that kind of clicks in with women. So I'm finding this very interesting as a way to look at the kind of over giving, the good girl phenomenon that so many of us talk about. That when we're facing stress, that is our response. And it's driven by the relaxation hormone oxytocin, which happens when women nurse their newborns. That relaxation hormone does build. So we get this sort of physiological reward for helping others while we're feeling stressed or by building connection with others, which is great. The problem becomes when this, and perhaps inevitably in many situations, when it becomes a one-way street, when it's all outgoing. So we're already externally focused, by taking these two types of activities up. But when it doesn't flow back to us, that's when, our tending goes unrecognized and becomes, that in the zone of invisible labor, and our connection making, we're not feeling like it's coming back to us and fulfilling our own needs, that we're just knitting others together without feeling that circle feeding ourselves. And I think that this is interesting. It's a lot, isn't it? That's a kind of,
It
it
is a
sort of
lot.
blew
It's
my
very
mind.
interesting.
So, when I come back to my, my core question, how do smart women find themselves in this position? Some of this is just, it is beyond, what our normal kind of, I keep saying, or our regular zone of awareness may even be. This is, kind of, we talk about the fight or flight response being from, the time when we were being chased by saber-toothed tigers. If we were even on Earth at the same time as saber-toothed tigers, I don't even know. But, but this could be, something that has been so central to how we have performed in the world since we all evolved to be the women that we are today. So that again, I bring that forward to say that is a phenomenon. It's important for us to be aware of that phenomenon and to switch off. I love that you use the word autopilot. We need to come off of autopilot. We can have this response. It's not like we're going to reprogram ourselves, but we need to
Right. It's
understand.
going to be an
Yes,
automatic
just like fight
piece.
or flight, that allows us to do what we need to
Right.
do, get us, merge onto the busy highway. And, it's not like these are toxic by definition, by any means, but we need to understand that they're true and understand their impact on us. And when we remain in any sustained place of, of a stress response, we need to get back to that, thinking about that seesaw, and how do we come off of that? How do we come down from it and make sure that we're able to get to a more level place for ourselves, so that, our thriving is more at the ready.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I've never
I
heard of that,
know.
and I'm going to read up on it more too, because it sounds so innate to myself and to
Right.
women in general.
Yeah. Part of it is pretty wonderful because it does identify and sort of classify what the majority of us women would sort of say it's our instinct. So it is interesting, and so much of social science is, it is what you kind of instinctively know, and then the data can back it up. And it's just, it's interesting that this well perceived study has been able to figure that out. And, there's,
Yes.
other dynamics around, how we find ourselves and where we, can find ourselves stuck. And, as you climb the ladder, as you get, as your ambition unfolds and you gain more and more, status or power or, responsibilities, there's a lot that you go through, at least I can say through my own experience and through the conversations I've had with, up to almost 100 women so far this year, is, you do what you need to do in the moment to get where you believe you need to get. And, we're kind of heads down on that next promotion, that next thing. And, that could be the way that your work life is set. So many companies, have, grades and a clear hierarchy, and much like school, you kind of know, okay, I have to fulfill these goals and then I will get to this next stage and then you can climb and climb. Lots of other experiences are not as regimented, but there is that if I do this, I will get, I have a good chance of getting to another place. We spend so much time thinking about, those requirements that we're not thinking about what the requirements are that run alongside that. So for those of us who have families, of course, we're thinking about that. What do the kids need? What are the doctor's appointments? What are the requirements to be fulfilled? What are all the extras that I want to make sure happen in my family's life? We're not putting that third column on, which is ourselves. So we have strong values as dictated by our work environment, the values aligned with, what the goals are for the company and where we want to land and, what those ambitions are, the values around, what our hopes and dreams are for either our children or our relationships, beyond the family, that kind of thing. We tend to have a, pretty clear view. But the third column that has when we separate ourselves from, all of the other responsibilities and titles of the first two, that is a really ambiguous place that goes, for most pretty untended with the thought, oh, when I retire, that's when the third column will click in. And, that's just not a way to help yourself thrive through, what is increasingly becoming a pressure cooker for us all. Work is not getting
Yeah.
easier.
You're postponing too much of your life for
Totally.
that one day. And then for a lot of women, they don't really know what to do because, it's become such a powerful pattern that they've had of tending to others, pleasing others, taking care of your children, that you don't know how to devote time to yourself. So I think that's why the discussion we're having today is so important for other women to hear, because it's just that awareness about taking steps, easy steps, to start creating moments when you have control over things to please yourself so that you can have fun, start living more of your life in a more fully and purposeful way. And really appreciate our conversation today. Everything you've brought to the table has been, to me, so relatable. I just hope that, the listeners here are really resonating with the examples you're giving in this conversation.
Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, it's a really important topic.
It is. It's so important because, when you're in that burnout phase, or you're trying to please your boss, and let's just say like a lot of bosses are males.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we come down home and talk to our spouse, some of what you were talking about in that tend and befriend, it's no wonder when the men in our lives, when they try to support us, give us helpful ideas and tips, they don't hit a home run for us, because our natural ability and how we react and how we take care of others is something unique to women.
Yeah.
And they don't, so there's a disconnect there. As much as they try to help, we can't do things exactly the same way they do. We have a feminine side
Right.
that's so beautiful.
Right.
And we just need to learn to embrace that and bring that forward so that it's not something that's a negative for us, but it's something that helps us be truly who we are and help us to shine.
Yeah, that's a tough one because so many workplaces don't reward that, right? And I can say in my career, the more that you kind of dim the light of your femininity, the better things were. And, and I come from a field where I think most would assume it's pretty women dominated. That was not my experience at all. And it's interesting, but, having, I think the more that we can understand, ourselves as individuals, but then also to know that we're not alone in these dynamics, and that we don't have to, throw everything away in order to get to a more stable, thriving position. That is that, the magic of the, I'm going to take a Tuesday afternoon once a month. How about you start there and think, I'm going to, and think about maybe doing the same thing every Tuesday afternoon once a month. Take away that cycle of potential scrolling and, figuring and trying to find the ultimate answer. Just figure out something you like to do, be it a bike ride or hit a bucket of balls
Mm-hmm.
or, take a swim, all of that. And I'm emphasizing motion in those examples because in addition to tend and befriend, there's also research that's talking about, there's a really good study out of Georgia about vacation time and what makes good vacation time. So let's just shrink down vacation to a Tuesday afternoon. One of the things that really pays off and makes vacation time last, the afterglow last, is how active you are on vacation. And I know you're a very active person, Wendy.
Yes.
It's, there's, we all,
That makes a lot of
right? I mean,
sense.
that's how I've been too on vacation. I love the beach and I like to be at the beach, but
Yeah.
I'm not one who's going to sit in a lounge chair all day long. It's just not how I'm programmed. But that activity, being active, does help with that lasting benefit that you get from enjoying yourself. So, you
Yeah.
have to be rested. Self-care is absolutely foundational. Take that as a given. Self-care, I always want to say, it is defined as what is required to maintain your physical and mental health. So to question self-care is completely out of bounds, right? So like self-care is an absolute.
Yeah.
And then that Tuesday afternoon, get moving, do something for yourself that you like, and be committed to yourself in that just a few hours and see where that takes you.
Yeah. Proclaim the day, block it in your calendar, then figure out what you're going to do. But get that on the calendar and announce that you are going to be gone. Yeah. I always say self-care is not selfish.
Mm-mm.
It's a
It
necessity.
really is. And I hate the fact that we've gotten to this point where it's even debatable, that we have deducted ourselves down to to make ourselves so small that we question it.
It's more in our own minds than anybody else is imposing on us.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal.
Yeah. So, Anne, what's lighting you up most days in your work right now? What brings you most joy and excitement these days?
I am really eager and energized around, frankly, this kind of conversation and bringing this message forward. I love, I love to present ideas. There's a reason why I've been in communications for my career. I love bringing ideas forward and helping people understand, something that they might not have known 5 minutes ago or seen it in the way that the particular story can guide them to see things. So that part is just always going to be energizing to me. I also really like focusing on something so positive. I do see this simple word, fun, as an antidote to so many things for women that can have a lasting benefit. And, at the Fun Reset, I always want to say this is about lasting change. It's not about having fun once in a while or, having, planning one good outing and, leaving it there. This is about bringing fun into the fabric of your life and knowing that it gives you so much to get you everything else that you want, there's both that opportunity to enjoy the life that you're building and to succeed as you go forward because your own cup has been filled in a significant way. And all of that, I mean, what luck do I have to be able to spend my time talking about this kind of thing, working with my group coaching participants on solving for these kinds of issues in their lives and getting them to a point where fun feels normal.
Oh, I love hearing about what fuels your passion. And you can just hear it in your voice when you talk about the things. And water seems to come up a lot.
Yeah.
Didn't you tell me that's part of your zodiac sign?
My human design, and I'm not an expert, but yes, yeah, the my human design. There's some classification where that you are attached to some sort of physical environment, and mine is shores. And I've always been drawn to either rivers or lakes or oceans, and I'm lucky to live near the ocean in New England, and it is a big deal for me. But yeah, water is. I love it. I really love being in and around the water for sure.
Well, your excitement about it is contagious and exactly the kind of spark I needed to hear today. Let's dig into the Fun Reset itself. Tell us about its creation and what inspired you to develop this offering to the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when I thought about this challenge, initially, the whole idea of how burned out women are feeling these days. And, I also always want to say men experience this too. I'm just focusing on women. I'm very happy to, talk to anyone who wants to develop a similar program for men because I know the need is real there too. But I thought, what can I contribute meaningfully? And, having reflected on my own experience and the stories that I shared already on in this conversation, I do have a clear perspective on this and an understanding now being a little bit farther down the road, what some of those choices either gave or took away from me as I think back on my career and the broader ambition that I've had for my life. And so with that personal experience and also, a greedy desire to learn as much as I can about what experts have to say about some of these dynamics. I realized once I got into it that this was not a conversation that is broadly held or happening. We're talking to women in some very, very talented people are talking about women in some pockets about burnout and how to manage the effects of burning out and how to come back to life once you experience burnout. Burnout for many is a medical condition. It can be a very serious set of circumstances and situations, and it can take 2 to 3 years to recover from burning out. That to me is a nightmare. And that's 2 to 3 years where you're not working necessarily, or certainly not able to work at full capacity. And your life is off track because you have to build yourself back up again. It's a very concerning outcome. Our chit chat around burnout was, in my mind, starting to feel like it's an inevitability for ambitious women. And that to me is completely, I can't tolerate that.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think of, I don't know if you had a grandfather who whittled. I don't know if people still whittle. There was a point at which my son was into whittling, but you sit with a piece of wood and you have a sharp knife and you just, hit the knife against the
Sure.
wood and bear it down. That's what I think about. That's the image that I have in my mind when I think about that kind of conversation around burnout, that women are just waiting to be whittled down to nothing. And that I don't think is actually how a lot of women have. That's not the true self perception of a lot of women, but that feels like what some part of this conversation is. And I can't stand that is just the way it goes in our society. So I thought, what can we talk about? What is a good way to engage in this conversation, but at an earlier stage. And in education, there's a lot of talk about interventions. So if a child is having difficulty with reading or a difficulty with math, let's say like in the third grade, there will be a set of interventions that a teacher or a specialist will engage to be able to bring that child back on track so that they can go forward in their learning. I'm considering fun as that intervention. So the idea that women can bring fun into their lives as they're experiencing stress, as they're dealing with so many of the dynamics that surround us, onboarding fun can even out the scales in such a way that it can make things possible and you don't head for burnout because you are regulating your life at an earlier stage. And fun being something that most of us understand what it is. Most of us have experienced it. I hope it's a universal experience for everyone. And we may not know, just as you said earlier, what it means to us today, but we know that we want it. We know, just as we instinctively know things like we talked about, fight or flight or tend and befriend, we also know, I mean, baby animals have fun, grown animals have fun. My brother texted me this morning that his adult golden retrievers were running the length of his fence with a deer on the other side for 10 minutes. And they were playing this, across species together. So, I mean, fun is this, absolutely fabulous asset that we can access. So I'm inviting women to think of fun as that intervention, to be able to, if we're a train on the track, we don't have to head for burnout. We can divert and have a life that is shaped differently. No one is going to tell us to do this. Our boss is not going to say, go have more fun. There's so many people that benefit from our doing and that kind of over functioning. It does come down to us to make these decisions for ourselves. So that's how, in a long way, that's how I started to think fun is actually the most important thing to talk about, because it's the lever we can all grab if we have the right kind of thinking and guidance to do it.
And I love how you frame fun, not as an escape, but as a lever, a real intervention that we can reach for when we feel stuck in the cycle of doing for everyone else. You're absolutely right. Our boss is not going to hand us permission to go have fun. And most of us are surrounded by people who benefit from all the ways we show up and over deliver. But at the end of the day, it really does come down to us giving ourselves that permission and support. And that's what makes what you're saying so important. It's not just about fun for fun's sake. It's really about using fun with intention as a reset and a realignment to who we are. And I know you dig into this so beautifully in your program, The Fun Reset. And I'd love for you to share more about how women can realistically begin to balance those responsibilities with bringing joy and energy back into their schedules.
One of the examples that I would offer that, where people are very, very well intentioned, when there's a simple example of a kid having hockey practice and, often ice time is 4:30 in the morning. When the parents are the ones who are constantly shuttling the kids around, and they don't take the opportunity to have another parent pick up their kid, if possible, not always possible, but let's just go with this as an example, to pick up their kid too, so that there's double duty on one morning, they can sleep in, and maybe they, the next morning, pick up both of the kids and split things up that way. When I think about that, the kid who has to ride in someone else's car in that morning is learning so much about how to be in the world. When you're with your own parents, you can be a jerk, you can be selfish, you can be anything, you can take all liberty. When you're with somebody else, you're learning how to perform in a new environment and answer a new kind of set of requirements. You're understanding how to put your own bag in the car. You're understanding how to have a life where, the cup holders aren't filled with all of your needs and desires. Those are really important learning experiences for kids.
And to know that families have different rules and different ways of
Yes,
coexisting in the car.
different exposure.
Yes.
Exactly, different exposure. So where we think, one might think, oh gosh, I'm just going to handle this. My kid will, it'll be easier, all that kind of stuff or whatever. Or this is my job as being this kid's mom or dad. Um, there is, you can both have your needs met and really fulfill on that kid's needs, your own child's needs. And I think that we miss those kinds of opportunities. So when we're overdoing, over fulfilling, thinking, oh my goodness, I can't go out for a drink that night because I'm going to be up at 4:30 in the morning sitting by the ice. So I can't go and make a plan to, go to that watercolor class. I'm going to be too tired. I can't do it. Is there a different answer? And could that answer actually yield a great result on the long run for your kid? So those are I guess a lot of what I have to say is slow down, look at the decisions that you're making, look at the way your body is responding. And my group coaching program helps in those moments. We're not trained for this. We're not rewarded for it. No one's asking for us to do this, but these are the skills that we do need to develop.
That's such great insight that you have there, because it is about pausing, slowing down, examining the pros and cons and the benefits from each decision, and maybe making a different decision for yourself for that situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's all over Instagram, right? That no is a complete sentence.
Absolutely,
there's a reason
it is.
why
It's
that's
even though
so
it's hard to
popular.
say.
I know we all need that, and I'm not above this, of course.
We need to practice that.
Exactly.
And your insights have been so grounding and inspiring today. But before we wrap up, I want to ask you this. For the women listening right now who might be feeling stretched thin or a little unseen, what encouragement or truth would you most want to leave her with?
Oh my goodness, all of the encouragement. It is a gift that you are here. The extent to which you matter cannot be overstated. And, I always go back to that Mary Oliver, quote, and I'm going to mangle it, but, what will you do with your one fabulous life? It's really important that you do everything you can with this moment that you have, and being a conveyor belt for other people's wishes and desires is not what you were put here to do. I can say that with utter confidence. So it is important to look beyond that and see what else there is for you. And I'm biased, but I do think it starts with trying to figure out how you can have more fun.
Oh, that's great. Oh, yeah, that's such an empowering quote that you had. I love that so much. It really puts the importance on decisions we make for and about ourselves each and every day.
Yeah. And I don't want this to be more work for anyone. This is about unlocking things and finding relief in ways that are easy and, fun. This is the route to joy. So let's sign up for that.
Let's do. And before I let you go, I always like to ask this one question. It's my favorite way to end every conversation. What's your most recent daring step you've taken, big or small, and what did it open up for you?
Yeah. So I talked about the fact that my career has been in PR. In this work, I need to step in front of the curtain. So as a PR person, you're always putting the spokesperson for who you've trained and empowered with messaging and all sorts of things to go off and talk to the media or take the mic. So I've spoken publicly frequently in my capacity as a PR person, but now doing this work under my own name, it is a very different thing. So feels daring, yet I'm very aligned with my values. And I do see this as a zone of genius for me. And as we talked about before, I'm delighted to be able to do this work. But there's a lot to being the voice and the face of something, and to start your own business. So this is daring, and I am proud of myself that it's a challenge. And every day brings its own adventure. But it does feel daring.
Oh, Anne, I couldn't be more proud of you. Your passion shines through brightly, and you have so much information to back up how you feel and the message that you convey to women. You have so much to support that. It's beautiful, and you are in the right place.
That's nice to hear,
So
Wendy.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Where can they follow you, work with you, or learn more about the Fun Reset?
Absolutely. So my URL, my website is thefunreset.com. I can be followed on Instagram at ATM Potts, my last name. And I'm happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn, where you can find me under Ann Mara Potts.
Okay, that's great. And don't worry, I'll include all this in the links and details in the show notes too. Thank you so much for listening and growing with me today. And keep saying yes to what fuels you, and I'll meet you right back here on Dim to Daring. Thank you so much for joining me today on Dim to Daring. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you subscribed, shared it with a friend, or left a review. It helps more women just like you discover the show. Remember, you're not finished yet, you're just getting started. Until next time, keep daring to grow and shine.